organization influence those. And we also provide a lot of direct services on behalf of the property owner community within downtown, daily cleaning services, security, and others that I will speak to. And we also act as a resource and a convener for our members, the media, and the public sector in the city. So let me share my screen, and I'm going to quickly run through these slides, and I'm happy to make them available because there's a fair amount of information here, and it may be hard to sort of keep up here in the time I have and read some of this. But here's where we're at today. These are numbers that we're tracking on a weekly basis that compare the same week this year to that week in 2019. So it's sort of our effort to measure sort of current state relative to what we would expect normally pre-COVID in downtown Seattle. We've started to see a recovery of office workers, still very low relative to normal, obviously, but that number is actually finally moving in the right direction as of the last couple of weeks. We'd been in the 20s or so for the better part of the last year, and we're starting to see a return. We expect a more modest increase as we get deeper into May. We expect this number to go up as many employers are reopening their doors in downtown. Looking at domestic visitors, these are folks who don't work or live downtown, but are visiting from either some part of the region or outside of the state. A much better story there, and a strong recovery of visitors downtown. Overall foot traffic, this is folks who live, work, visit downtown, about 70% of where we ought to be this week in a normal year. Pike Place Market, about the same. It's been a real bright spot in downtown Seattle throughout this pandemic, really. There's been certain weekends and weeks where they've had 100% of what their normal week would be. Real strong recovery over the last 2 or so months in hotels in downtown, really driven by the return of conventions and then the cruise business that's back on the shores of downtown Seattle as of last week. We had our best week of the year this past week as far as hotel occupancy in downtown Seattle. Early in the pandemic, we had dozen plus hotels that had their doors completely closed, and we were in the single digits and teens and low 20s for occupancy for about 14, 15 months or so. So it was a grim scene for the hospitality community, and a real healthy recovery there, again driven by leisure travel and then the return of conventions. Our first convention during COVID was the Labor Day of last year. So we didn't have conventions this time last year or really at all in the summer. And as we look ahead, we're grateful for conventions being back on the books in downtown. And then the residential occupancy, this is looking at occupied apartment units in downtown Seattle. Again, a really bright storyline. 104% of where we were in 2019. We saw a lot of folks leave downtown in 2020, but we saw a lot of folks plus some more return in 2021, and we've got more people living downtown today than ever before. About 100,000 people living within downtown Seattle. That's Seattle Center down to Pioneer Square essentially, and then First Hill to the water. I'll just speak at a fairly quick pace here to some of the investments that we're making as an organization and what we're focused on through the investment of our members, but also property owners in downtown Seattle. We believe that downtown's very well positioned for recovery and renewal. We have assets that so many other downtowns and cities around North America and frankly around the world would envy, from arts and culture and a great transit system, natural beauty, a diverse economy and tech sector. We've got a lot going for us. And we believe our first area of focus and really the critical issue here is to get the experience right. The experience of being downtown, of being on the sidewalks in public areas, on Third Avenue, in our parks, on our transit system, on our transit station has got to be a good one. And consumers and workers today, they've got more choices than ever before of where they want to spend their time, whether that's online or in their own neighborhood or in some other place. And if we want them to choose to be in an urban environment like downtown Seattle, the experience has just got to be a phenomenal one. It's got to be clean and safe to begin with, but it's also got to be interesting and delightful and unique, and really deliver on the promise of if you're going to come downtown, you're going to get a great experience that you just can't get anywhere else. That's always been the promise of our urban areas, whether it's for work or play, sports, food, celebrating. These are things, that you can't do in the same way that you can in a downtown environment. And that's what we need to deliver on. That's what we're focused on through our direct investments, but also through our working to influence public policy and decisions of the city. We're spending a lot of time with city and county government on the issues of safety, security, and homelessness. I won't go into a lot of detail there. Happy to take some questions, but I'll just speak real quickly here to some of our areas of focus. We're increasing our investment in cleaning. We provide 7-day-a-week cleaning services. We're leaning in really hard there. Downtown's got to be clean, free of graffiti. We got to get the plywood down. We've made a lot of headway there over the last several months. We have a safety hospitality team out on the streets 7 days a week as well. We've recently expanded those hours. So these are ambassadors interfacing with visitors, other folks on the street, people in need, trying to connect them to services, and also being another group of folks that can interface with the police department and report crime and other security issues. We've gotten into the business of security ourselves. We've retained a security firm, Iron and Oak, over the last several months. We've increased their weekly hours as of last week from about 500 hours a week to over 800 hours a week. These are unarmed security, but they wear body cameras. They can detain folks. They provide a higher level of security than our safety team, and have the training and equipment to do so. So we are deploying these folks in areas of concentrated crime. They're coordinating with the police department and with private security that's funded by small businesses and property owners downtown. Again, we've recently increased this service within the downtown core. Transit and how folks get to downtown, particularly get back to work as you're coming back into your office, is so key. And again, the experience there has got to be a good one. The good news is, most of the service that we had prior to the pandemic, both light rail and bus service, is running again. So nearly 100% of the service is back on the street, and we've recently expanded transit options into downtown with the extension of light rail to Northgate and the opening of 3 new stations. And soon Seattle and Bellevue will be connected with high frequency all-day service connecting our 2 downtowns in 2023. The experience on transit's got to be a great one as well, and we've got work to do there as far as ensuring to ensure it's safe and clean, and you feel good getting on the bus or train and off at the station. Metro's focused on hiring about 50 additional security officers over the next several months to be both on buses, particularly those buses that are having lots of issues with security and safety issues, but also at the platforms, and then deploying their King County Sheriff deputies as well. We're seeing more police and sheriff deputies on the streets of 3rd Avenue in particular, and the areas around our transit stations. So that is a real improvement over what we were seeing several months ago. We're focused as well on making some good things happen in our parks and public spaces downtown, giving people reason to show up and come out of their office to get together with their colleagues again. So we've launched this last week, and these will be running through the summer, through August. Every Tuesday and Thursday, a bunch of activities, happy hours, putt-putt golf, music, food trucks in 2 parks that we manage, Occidental Park and Westlake Park in downtown. Again, just trying to create reasons for people to gather once again and fill our public spaces, and create reasons for people to maybe spend a few days in the office and get together with their colleagues after work and create a positive atmosphere in our parks. So those events and activities kicked off this week, and we'll be doing it every week through August. We're welcoming folks back with a series of welcome back booths in high pedestrian corridors and locations throughout downtown. These started this past Wednesday. These will run every Wednesday through August, giving away free drinks and food and just information, and providing just a friendly, welcoming face in a number of locations, high traffic locations throughout the downtown. Again, every Wednesday through August, we're deploying these welcome back booths. We did these last summer for a few weeks, and they were highly popular, so we're bringing them back. Toward the end of May, we'll be producing a series of downtown block parties in a number of locations, the 18th through the 20th. Again, just trying to create some positive energy and activity, get more eyes and ears and feet on the street, and create fun experiences to take in with your friends and colleagues. So we're partnering with the Seattle Sports Commission and Seafair and Microsoft, a number of other organizations, to produce a series of block parties later this month. Some on Pier 62 over by the market, and Westlake and Occidental as well. The 21st, the mayor of Seattle has put together a citywide day of service, and we're captaining a series of events and activities for downtown. Again, inviting people in, volunteers, to help just get downtown looking better. Some community service projects, planting, cleaning, garbage removal, putting up more murals if we have empty storefronts, getting plywood and graffiti down as we have more stores opening up their doors. So we're looking forward to gathering the community on Saturday, the 21st, to get everybody to roll up their sleeves along with our cleaning ambassadors and our clean team to get downtown looking even better. For the past 40 years or so, we've run an outdoor concert series, and it's going to be larger and bigger and better than ever. This will kick off in July, run through September. It says 20 plus concerts. I think we're over actually 35 or so now. So concerts throughout downtown and in public spaces and parks and public plazas, Harbor Steps, Westlake, the waterfront, and then a few concerts on the roof of the Hard Rock Cafe over there by the Pike Place Market. So these are all free concerts designed to draw people out of their offices, get residents out, and draw more visitors in for the day. Some of these will happen over lunch, some later in the afternoon, and again, running throughout the summer. And then we've created a micro website, loveseatown.com, to showcase all of these activities and events that we're doing and the other events that other organizations are putting on throughout our downtown throughout the summer. So it's sort of your go-to place to get information and learn what's happening so that you can take part, share it with your colleagues and employees, and we can drive more visitors and attendance and traffic to some of these events. And get people into our downtown and into our public spaces. And then we've also created a separate page on our website just to help people understand, what's open, what are their hours, restaurants, bars, hotels, other attractions. So you can get to that at downtownseattle.org. Good news is, 75+% of the businesses and attractions that existed prior to the pandemic made it through and have their doors open today. And we're welcoming in some new businesses as well over the next several months. So I will leave it there, and I don't want to eat into Jesse's time, and look forward to your questions, but that's what we're focused on as an organization, really about the experience. We've got the assets in place in downtown Seattle to support a new recovery, to support a renewal and recovery of our great downtown. And we've got to ensure we deliver a great experience. That's where we're putting our shoulder and our resources. And it's what we're urging our city and county partners to be focused on as well with us. Let's create a great experience for all those who live, work, and visit here. And the rest, in a lot of ways, I think will take care of itself as we look to reimagine and renew as we come out of this pandemic. So thanks again for the opportunity to be with you, and thanks for putting up with me virtually. I'd much rather be with you there in person.
Hopefully they're making the switch over to Jesse right now. There he is.
Hopefully folks can see me. Good afternoon, everyone. Very excited to be presenting to you today. Very sorry I couldn't join y'all in person. This was, as was mentioned, a last minute step in for Patrick. Just again, for background, I'm Jesse Caneda. I'm the head of economic development for the city of Bellevue. So actually I am not an employee of the BDA. I work very closely with Patrick, but I report to the Bellevue city manager on all things related to economic development here on the east side. So just for context, that includes all of our traditional work around business relations, working with with small businesses, first-time business owners, working with Amazon as they grow into downtown Bellevue, or T-Mobile, Microsoft, etc. Standing up a new public-private partnership program for the city of Bellevue that helps bring the private sector and government a little bit closer together in developing and delivering the services and amenities that East Siders and Bellevuers are looking for, and then also arts and culture, because as John was mentioning, the experience is important, more important than ever for our downtowns and other neighborhoods. So working to make sure that Bellevue's arts and culture scene is front and center to help make a vibrant and exciting creative experience for our workers, residents, learners, and visitors. So since I'm not a member of the BDA, I'm going to be a little bit higher level today, talk a little bit more some of the broader policies and construction pipeline kind of things, unfortunately, that don't have the details that John has about the great recovery that is happening in downtown Seattle. I don't have similar stats here for downtown Bellevue, but I will share what I can, try to channel Patrick as much as possible. I just want to note that from the Bellevue side, we definitely are excited to see the rebound on both sides of the lake and across the region. When downtown Seattle does well, the region does well, just like when downtown Bellevue does well, the region does well. So it is a partnership, and we look forward to deepening that cross-regional collaboration on so many fronts. With regards to kind of the current state of downtown, I can say that we're across the board seeing about 50 to 60% of workers back in the office sometime during the week. Traffic appears to be back to normal for those that pass through downtown Bellevue on a regular basis or take the 405 corridor. That traffic is definitely back, signaling a lot of return to economic activity. Our hotels are at about 60% occupancy as of late March, which is transitioning or translating into about 100,000 overnight visitors per month. And our hotels are hitting their rates at about $160 a night right now, which is great considering they were easily half of that about 18 months ago. So our visitor economy is definitely coming back. Our small businesses, our street-facing small businesses here in downtown are noting the return of activity, and they're excited to see all of the Amazon workers start to roll into the offices as they open up. I'll also note Bellevue across the board is getting bigger and better. We've got about 14 million square feet of development currently in the pipeline. That includes all of our office, residential, and hotel space. That's downtown, and then primarily our Bell Red corridor area, which is our growth corridor along the light rail line. So that is continuing to go forward. We're seeing more interest than ever in Bellevue as we continue to develop that high quality sense of place. Important notes, our 555 building being developed by our fantastic local developers Vulcan and to be occupied by Amazon is nearly topped out. It will be the tallest building in Bellevue, taking advantage of our new 600-foot height limits in downtown. And similarly, the Bellevue 600 project, which is being developed by Amazon, is very deep into construction and should start popping out over the street side anytime now. And both of those projects I want to mention are important because they will help Bellevue deliver on the vision of our Grand Connection, which is that kind of Romulus, Lincoln Row kind of environment from Maidenbower Bay through our downtown park in the heart of downtown, across the highway over to East Rail. So that pedestrian space, that fantastic urban experience is continuing to develop and iterate in partnership with our private developers. And we're looking forward to working with the Downtown Association and others to help activate that space more than ever. We're looking at ways to bring more art, more music, more dance, all sorts of different community building and experiential activities out onto our Grand Connection. And so talking about the future and development, the buildings are great, the hardscape and built environment are fantastic, but we also want to make sure we talk about the people. And I'll get a little bit more into that in a second. I'll just note, our current environment is definitely an attraction. We're seeing, as I mentioned, about 108,000 overnight visitors every month right now, $1 billion in tourism activity. So there's definitely a demand to be back in downtown Bellevue. We're also seeing the arrival of new companies. So in addition to Amazon, which gets all the headlines, we've got ByteDance and Chewy both opening up offices here in downtown. So those tech workers are definitely still continue to be interested in the urban environment that is evolving here in downtown Bellevue. So with that, I want to kind of highlight two things around where downtown Bellevue, or maybe Bellevue, Central Bellevue, is going in the future. And for those that are more on the policy-oriented side of the house, Bellevue is currently working on updating our comprehensive plan, which is our guiding document around growth. We're setting our growth targets for 2044. And so the two slides I'm going to share right now will help folks visualize where downtown Bellevue is going in the future. So let's see, hopefully folks can see the second slide. So when we think about, and I'm reusing the slide from an earlier presentation today to the Council on Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat, but Bellevue is rising to number 3 as the 3rd downtown for the Pacific Northwest. Right now, downtown Bellevue is definitely the 2nd city for the Seattle metropolitan area, but with the topping out of the 555 building that Vulcan is constructing, the tallest buildings in downtown Bellevue will be taller than what is currently in downtown Portland, and just slightly shorter than what is currently on the market in downtown Vancouver, BC. So we will be kind of 3rd tallest downtown in the Pacific Northwest. So when folks are thinking, well, what's the future of Bellevue? What's downtown going to look like? Go to Portland, go to Vancouver. Downtown Bellevue is going to be right in the middle of those comps. Of course, downtown Seattle will continue to be the major downtown, the major urban core for the region. We cannot touch the Columbia Center right now. But again, 3rd tallest buildings, 3rd tallest downtown in the greater Pacific Northwest. And so then when we think about not just the buildings, but the people who will occupy these spaces, these office buildings, these 600-foot apartment buildings, how does Bellevue compare? How is Bellevue rising in that particular space? As we look out towards our 2044 growth targets, all things being steady, we could see Bellevue's citywide employment reach about 230,000 over the next 4 years. That's a 70,000 person or job jump. And those are our growth targets citywide, is to add 70,000 additional jobs and 35,000 additional housing units, primarily in downtown, East Main, Wilburton. Those will be the primary recipients of that growth. So I'm calling that Central Bellevue for today's purposes. So again, when you're thinking about what will the experience be in downtown Bellevue in 10, 15, 20 years, the number of jobs in downtown Bellevue or in Central Bellevue will be more than the number of jobs in current day Portland, slightly less than the number of jobs in Vancouver, and then resident-wise, in 2044, Central Bellevue will have slightly more than the number of residents in current day Portland, downtown Portland, and significantly less than current day residents in downtown Vancouver. So again, if you're looking for what's that experience going to be in 10, 20 years, visit Portland, visit Vancouver, and that is kind of density and environment that's going to exist in Bellevue in the coming years. And so those comps are important for us at City Hall and in our work with the Downtown Association, Patrick's team, because they help us understand the infrastructure, the amenities, the retail, the services, the park space, all the other things that help create a livable, enjoyable, high quality place. They help us understand what we need to start putting into the queue right now, so that when our residents, visitors, workers, and learners come into downtown, all of that's in place and they get exactly what they're thinking about when they think about the region's the 2nd largest downtown for the Seattle metro area and the 3rd largest downtown in the Pacific Northwest. So just want to share some of those, some of that perspective and context about where Bellevue is going in the long term. And then just to wrap up my comments on where Bellevue is going in the near term, these are all things that we're working on with Patrick's team and our other external partners. So of course, Eastlink, the line 2 from Sound Transit, and their BRT, their bus rapid transit lines up and down the 405 corridor will be game changers for Bellevue and the East Side, providing more consistent and reliable high capacity transit into our city center. We're looking forward to making a big splash when line 2 finally opens, hopefully next year. And then as well when BRT comes online in 2024. So those are big monumental moments that will shift how Bellevuers and East Siders get around. We're also working with Visit Bellevue, our destination marketing organization, to set up a TPA, a tourism promotion area, which will provide additional resourcing and funding to provide more marketing for our hotels and convention industry, and also help provide more incubation for events and activities in downtown and our other high growth neighborhoods. We are growing our partnership with the Downtown Association to do more active place management and place activation. So a group of us that are stakeholders with the Downtown Association were over in Arlington, Virginia last week, taking a look at how they have grown and activated their central business districts in Arlington County over the last few years in partnership with Amazon and other large employers. And that gave us a lot of energy and a lot of new perspective on how the Bellevue Downtown Association can play a role in active place management and activation in our central city. And then one area that's not directly in our central business district, but that I want to make sure to highlight as the head of economic development, is Bellevue's arts district. So that term might come as a surprise to folks, but yes, Bellevue does have an arts district, and one that we are working with our community partners to bring forward more visibly. So near the 130th station that is on that line 2 that Sound Transit is building, there are about 120 arts organizations, creative businesses, artistic endeavors, all happening near that 130th station. And as that area continues to redevelop, thanks to the investments in the regional rail, we are going to be bringing forward more arts, more culture, looking at ways to deploy murals, do art walks, do all sorts of creative outdoor activities that really help create a focal point for the creative economy and the creative sector on the East Side. And because Bellevue and the East Side are hubs of the video game industry, we're looking at ways to really incorporate the artistry that goes into video games. There's an intense amount of design, of storytelling, of music creation, of all sorts of other things that go into video game engineering. So when we think about the arts district, we're not thinking about that traditional model with visual galleries. We're thinking about a next generation technology forward arts district that really reflects the community on the East Side, and will be a great pairing to go with downtown Bellevue, and will be just 2 stops away on the light rail. So with that, I will wrap up my comments, and thanks everybody for listening.
All right, hopefully we can get John back on the shared screen. There he is. You got to give it to Jesse. He literally, and to use a Tim Marry Me expression that you guys will know and love, he got pulled up from the bullpen at the 11th hour. So for him to actually put a deck together when he didn't even know he was going to be doing this a few hours ago is pretty impressive. So appreciate you, Jesse. We've got about 10 minutes left. We're right on time. We want to make sure we give everybody an adequate amount of capacity to ask either of these leaders questions about their respective cities. So I'm going to walk around with the mic. And so raise your hand as you have a question, and I'll come over to you with the microphone. Oh, good. Steve Corey's got one. Actually, the board members were asked to come up with the questions. So this isn't a complete shock.
There'd be a lot of red name badges. Jesse, great job, and thank you. One of the things that you mentioned is, the Parks Department, the passway through from Main Bower to downtown. Can you speak to a little bit about how, in the time of COVID, you got that put together, and where are the funding sources, or how did that work?
Yeah, so the microphone cut cut out a little bit for me, but hopefully I heard the question, which is how has the city been approaching the Grand Connection work from Maidenbower Bay to East Rail? COVID was a big game changer. What's different now? So I'll say we've worked a lot with Patrick and Amazon and other major downtown stakeholders. I think one of the big things to make sure everybody's framing correctly is the Grand Connection is a true public-private partnership. That space will be partially publicly owned, but principally privately owned. So we're working with the Downtown Association to convene those stakeholders to understand how do we actively manage that? What's the best practices we're going to be putting in place to make sure that's set up for success in the future. And for reference, in 2019, right before the pandemic started, we went out to Dallas, Texas. Patrick took us out to Dallas to learn how they have managed and set up infrastructure around Clyde Warren Park, which is a similar concept that includes a park lid over their highway. And so we're taking the lessons learned from there, working with our consultants. And so there will be more to come. Unfortunately, I can't share too much more than that because there's still a lot of work going on behind the scenes, but it's definitely going to be a public-private partnership with the Downtown Association.
Okay, Steve nodded his head in agreement that was a sufficient answer, Jesse. So appreciate you. Oh, good. John Smith has a question.
How interconnected are either of your groups with, say, southern parts of the state or even Thurston County? Go that far. Are you interconnected in any way? Have any partnerships or projects that may be coming online for travel or even communication that happens between the groups?
I can say,
John, you want to go first, John?
Yeah, I can say we have relationships with downtown groups around the state: Spokane, Tacoma, Olympia, Bellevue, obviously, and then relationships around the country as well. This past legislative session, for example, we all within the state were active in advocating for significant investment that the state made to address homelessness and mental health and behavioral health issues. So there's some communication and coordination that's evolving to identify joint advocacy priorities at the state level. I think there's a lot more opportunity because each of these urban areas, even though the scales may be different, it's a lot of similar challenges and opportunities. That's certainly true between Seattle and Bellevue, but also in other parts of the state. So we've got a lot to learn from one another, and I think opportunity to lock arms, because the future in our region and in our state is very much an urban one as far as how we're growing in these urban cores. And we're going to be more closely connected to our urban neighbors within King County through light rail in the next couple of years than ever before. So our destinies are very much more linked than they have been.
Jesse, do you want to opine on that as well?
From the Bellevue side, I would say I think Patrick would echo all of John's comments, and I'll say from the city side, similarly, we work with communities up and down the I-5 corridor, particularly strongly with the east side from the City Hall perspective.
Okay, here we go.
Mark Weed. Hi, John. John, could you share a little bit of the challenges you have in manning the services in downtown and the importance of all of us in this room? If you see a guy out there or a gal out there doing some work or doing some ambassador work, tell them thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mark, and thanks to Mark for his service on our board over many years. But yeah, we employ about 125 or so full-time ambassadors in the cleaning, safety, hospitality, and security work, and then in the work of managing parks. Most of those folks have come out of homelessness or some interaction with the criminal legal justice system. So we've really oriented it as a second chance job program. We've had labor struggles like everybody, and just keeping a team full, and we've got 20 vacancies right now we're trying to address, where we've just raised our wages to hopefully help in that regard. But yeah, it's been a challenging 2 years of doing that work every day. We've been on the street throughout this pandemic. They've been on the street, except for I think about 5 days early on in the pandemic. We've scaled those services to meet the needs. At the time, we didn't have 125 people out there in April of 2020, but we were on the street. And so, yeah, if you see those folks in the yellow with a bucket or broom or on a bike, they sure appreciate you saying thank you, and I do too. And our big challenge downtown is right now is certainly the lack of police support and police staffing. And so in some ways we're filling that gap right now with the investment we're making in security, and private property owners are doing the same. We don't want to be writing those checks, but we think they're necessary ones, at least for the time being, until the department can get rebuilt.
Great. Good question, Mark. Who else? We got time for a few more questions. We got one back here. Mr. Dibble.
Thank you. I've got a question about your relationships with corporations and what you're hearing on getting back to work. I mean, we read what they say. I don't know if you can comment on that any differently. And then where do you think the tipping point is in terms of percentage of people back to work, and are you shooting for some number in both of the downtowns that will make a significant difference?
John, you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, from all the surveys that we've done in our downtown and then looked at around the country, most employers are saying that they're going to be back in an office-centric environment. They're going to allow some more flexibility than they did before, but they're going to be in the office most of the week. And we surveyed about 200 employers downtown a couple of months ago, and that's what we learned. And you look across the country, and you look at what big companies are doing as far as their real estate purchases, whether it's Google or Facebook or Microsoft. All the signals point to that the office is going to be very important. I mean, Google spent $2.5 million plus in New York to buy more office space in Chelsea in the middle of this pandemic. So I think we move back to the office over time here. I think Seattle and other West Coast markets have certainly trailed East Coast and Midwest and Southern cities in that regard. I think there's a lot of different reasons for that. Certainly we've had more restrictions in place and mask mandates and all of that longer than some of those other places. We're more reliant on the transit system to get people in and out of downtown Seattle than most other cities are. So that has slowed, I think, a return to work. But we think this is going to pick up as we get deeper into the summer. And employers have told us that the number one condition is just they want to make sure it's a safe and a great experience for their employees, both on the transit system that's needed to get them there in the first place, but also once they get into downtown. And that's been the message that we've taken to City Hall and the county and others. And I think if we can show progress there, and there's been some recent progress in the last 2 months on that front, then we're going to have more office workers back. It's not going to get to exactly where it was, I think this summer or even the fall or perhaps this time next year. But if we can focus on the things that I covered, we can make sure that those companies that are in downtown are growing. And so the base is getting bigger, and then we're attracting more companies that want to locate and have offices there. So that's been our focus. And again, I'm bullish on the office. I don't think it's going to go back exactly how it was, but I don't think we're going to see this, massive continuation of remote work either.
Jesse, what do you say from the Bellevue side?
Yeah, on this side, as we've been engaging with our major office employers, office tenants, kind of along the lines of what John is saying, it has to be a compelling, a clean, safe, active experience for the employees to really want to come in to the office on a regular basis. We're currently estimating that probably in the next 18 months, it'll probably be about 60% of employees will be into the office at some point in the day, principally Tuesday through Thursday. What we're hearing right now is Mondays and Fridays those are individual contributor time. People are heads down working. Tuesday through Thursday, they want to be in the office, collaborating and doing all of the extroverting that needs to be done for the week.
Cool. That's a good, succinct answer. We've got time for one more question because I want to be respectful of Jesse's time. He had a 1:30 that he had to make sure that he was going to be able to get over to. So I think there was somebody else had their hand up over here. Is that you, Timbo? I don't see any other takers, Tim. So you get it better be a good one, last and final.
I'll tell you, it's tough. I had a couple different questions, but want to thank you both for a great presentation and letting us know all the good things that are happening both in Seattle and in downtown Bellevue. Well, since I'm an East Sider, I'll go ahead and ask Jesse this question. It is amazing and great to hear the goal as far as growth in downtown Bellevue 20 years from now, roughly. And I just had a question as far as the density in the city obviously will be increasing, housing increasing too. But Has there been any talk of infrastructure outside of public transit to get folks to their jobs in downtown Bellevue, in the future? We're evolving as a society with automobiles and use, but I'm just kind of thinking about commuting in to a city center with much more density, many more companies employed. Is there any talk of some revamping of 405 and 520 for some of that, or is that it's mainly going to be reliant upon public transit and kind of how that plays out?
Great question. Transportation is always front and center. I cannot speak in depth about any future plans for 405 or 520, aside from hopefully someday getting those ramps from 520 to 124th funded through the legislature. But Bellevue's taking a multimodal approach. It's transit and roads and highways, and so we're looking always with Sound Transit, with Metro, with King County and others, whether it's additional bike trails that people can bike commute on, making sure we have the platform available for any innovative solutions like autonomous vehicles. We're working on a curbside management plan right now to help enable our largest employers do shuttle service and possibly shared shuttles that are more efficient and timely than some of the bus routes that we currently have. So we're looking at all the solutions, which also includes adding more housing near our offices. So that way people have more options to walk to or take a shorter commute into the office as opposed to commuting in from Bothell or Benson or points further out.
Excellent, excellent. Well, big round of applause for John and for Jesse. Making the most of a not a perfect situation here, and again, Perkins Coie appreciate them hosting us and getting the tech to work. Thank Carlos in the back here for making sure that we're all square. So that concludes today's event. Although those of us in the room I was reminded by Steve Corey that it's been a few years since we've been in person, and I forgot one of the hallmarks of doing this event is to all be introduced and go around the room so that we can all network sufficiently. So it just goes to show that with the Zoom